My name's Wai, and I'll be giving the talk over the next hour or so, a couple of hours. Let's talk about esoteric religion, apocalypticism, and revolutionary movements. And what it is, it's about something which most social scientists and political philosophers have completely glossed over, that some of the most powerful revolutionary movements of the past 500 years, 1,000 years, all around the world, the key factor behind them has been apocalyptic ideology and also esoteric religion, i.e. the God within, the idea that somehow everyone's God. Okay, that's what this talk's going to show, and actually show how we can revive the apocalypse archetype and esoteric religion to start a 21st century world revolution. Okay. So, okay, I guess introduction. I mean, a lot of people here will probably be familiar with some of these ideas. If we talk about revolution, then we have to ask, why is revolutionary change needed? So a lot of this will be familiar with you: political, corporate corruption, the idea that banks own the governments and corporate lobbies buy the politicians, they own the political parties. So corporate banking money buys political power helps people earn more money, and then power is consolidated and rich, etc., and you get basically a kind of 1%, the 1% of the 1% take all the power, and eventually you get a political domination and potential one world tyranny. So this is the idea that what's happening is that kind of there's been a shift of political power over the past kind of 50, 60 years. So what we're facing now is this kind of like it's almost like the end game, if you like, that these powers really are kind of approaching a kind of world tyranny. Now, this is not conspiracy theory, because this has been the repeated pattern all through history. If you don't watch out for it, then people do seize power, and you basically have a modern-day Caesar and a modern-day emperor. And so that's one of the reasons why this idea that we need some kind of revolutionary change in this world. The second reason, which is very pressing, is that this idea that somehow the world is walking into a global catastrophe. That in the next 30, 40 years, global warming, the population is going to grow by another 4 billion over the next 30, 40 years. If the world's bursting at the seams now, add another 3 billion people. And also, obviously, ecological destruction. The fisheries are going to be completely exhausted by 2050. Peak oil, some people think peak oil's already happened. Peak gas in 2030, peak uranium 2035, energy crises, food crises, water crises, you name it. It's all hitting year on year. It will get worse and worse each year to a kind of point in 30 years' time. If nothing's done, it's going to be absolutely cataclysmic, like really bad. Okay. And okay, we have all the traditional causes of revolution, but now it's on a global scale. So we have global tyranny, global social injustice, global food shortages, and demographics. Two of the main problems in the past which have caused revolutions is demographics, lots of young people, lots of unemployed young people, and food shortages. Now, if you add another 3 billion people onto the planet, that's a lot of young people. Say Iran. Iran is ripe for a revolution. There's been a revolution in '79, but 2/3 of Iranians are under the age of 30 and 1/4 is under the age of 15. So the next kind of 20, 30 years, there's going to be lots of young, unemployed young people. Okay, so this is inevitable. Now, there will always be your John Pilgers, your Naomi Kleins, your kind of Noam Chomskys, the people who speak for dispossessed, the kind of disenfranchised and exploited. But new voices have joined the chorus. So we have people like Joseph Stiglitz, ex-World Bank economist, Nobel Prize winner, says there has to be radical reform of the financial services industry, really almost revolutionary reform. And even someone like James Martin, who's a multi-millionaire, a member of the establishment, made his money of IBM, owns his own island in the Pacific, has predicted inevitable violent revolutionary change if things don't, kind of evolutionary solutions aren't implemented. So these are members of the establishment. Even someone like Charles Ferguson, who made the movie Inside Job, the recent movie, excellent expose of the financial services industry. He sees corruption in the American political system, and he kind of calls for a kind of radical shake-up, because even he says, and he's a real, again, another multi-millionaire, lifetime member of the American Council on Foreign Relations, a real kind of Washington insider. And he's saying the banks effectively own both political parties. And he's kind of predicting a kind of third party or kind of a new social movement that needs to emerge to tackle what will never happen within the existing political system. Now, what about evolutionary change? I mean, people say, revolution, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Why can't you have evolutionary change? Because potentially we could evolve the political systems, we could solve the political problems evolutionarily, but the powers that be block these solutions, because the banks, the businesses causing all the problems in the world, they own democracy effectively. So these evolutionary changes, which can be implemented slowly and steadily, are actually blocked. And these solutions we can implement to save the environment, to make farming better and more productive, to solve the energy crises. These solutions are again blocked by the very companies that are going to lose money if you start, using energy sensibly, start using renewable energy, start using drip irrigation, sensible organic farming techniques, cross cropping, etc. These businesses actually block these evolutionary changes, the very powers that make money from the way things are now. So evolutionary change is desirable, but it doesn't happen, and that's the reason why. So there's this question that we need a kind of revolutionary change, that there's all these calls for revolutionary change, but there's also a problem because there seems to be a missing movement. Okay, it seems to be a missing movement. Now, the traditional site, the traditional opposition in the world, i.e. the left wing, socialism, that's provided traditionally the opposition to your incumbent powers. Now, even left-wing thinkers like Gabriel Coco, who was a chum of Noam Chomsky, a writer of the New Left, sees the left wing, a left-wing thinker, sees the left wing as a spent force, something that's kind of lost its power, doesn't have the power it used to have. He thinks that there should be an oppositional movement, but the left wing just doesn't have the kind of number of people and influence it used to have. Someone like David Harvey, a Marxist writer, made loads of money during the selling books after the 2008 crash because he wrote about Marxism. So there's a resurgence in Marxism. He's probably made so much money he's joining the capitalist classes now. But David Harvey, this Marxist thinker, says the same thing. He says that, he'd love to see a kind of Marxist insurrection somewhere in the world, some kind of massive Marxist kind of movement to actually take on these banks, these corrupt powers. But he sees nothing on the radar scope. So we'd dearly love to see some kind of left-wing Marxist insurrection, some kind of movement, oppositional movement, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So the left wing used to be powerful, and that used to be a site of opposition, but it doesn't seem to exist in the same way it did anymore. And it's not just kind of like right-wing thinkers thinking that, it's also the left wing thinking the same thing. Okay, so, and even Charles Ferguson, who says in America there should be this kind of protest movement emerging to oppose the financial services industry. He's saying that, yes, what's out there seems to be ineffectual. There should be some kind of third force, a new political party, but what's out there doesn't seem to scratch the surface even. I know what some of you are asking. Some of you are asking, what about the existing protest movements? Okay, what about the Occupy movement? What about NGOs? What about things like the World Social Forum? What about the environmental movement? Surely can't they scale up to become this kind of opposition that the world so needs? There's problems because these are kind of new groups. The problem is scaling up. Okay, you have protest movements like the environmental movement, like the world justice movement, global justice movement, fair trade movement. But the problem is scaling up. So they're protest movements, they protest, but they can't actually challenge the system. There's an inability to scale up to actually challenge the actual system. It protests, but it doesn't actually take power. One of the problems is because there's a disdain, there's a kind of like rejection of any kind of organization. There's a kind of like preference for horizontal organizing. No leaders, no program, no organizing. Whereas the opposition, the financial services industry, the political parties are very organized, very disciplined, and very well funded. And that's what you're up against. So the question that many people in the Occupy movement are asking now, what next? What next? How do we actually take on these powers that be? I mean, there's a long way to go because the revolution hasn't even started yet. What we have is protest. The protest we see now is nothing compared to the protests that happened in the 60s and 70s when students were actually literally being shot. I mean, there'll be rubber bullets and then there'll be real bullets. There'll be water cannons, there'll be blokes kind of drag you out in your bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and take you to some place. So, I mean, the question is, what next? Okay, which we're going to address in this talk. Now, the other idea that somehow the World Social Forum, this kind of kind of network of all the NGOs. NGOs do great work. They kind of do great work in the world. There's this idea that we can have a kind of massive NGO called the World Social Forum that can actually, get together and actually take on the powers that be. But it can't happen. And the reason why is because the charter of NGOs is very circumscribed, and also they have funding from particular sources that are actually part of the establishment. So they'd never be changed by NGO, revolutionary change. And the World Social Forum, in their charter, I mean, they can't even agree whether they can actually agree on anything. So they can't even agree whether they should actually ever have a joint declaration. So they can say a better world is possible, but they're forbidden in the charter to actually define what that better world is and actually define steps to realize that better world. So there's a problem here. So existing movements, NGOs, World Social Forum is a kind of thing which will never progress to a full-scale revolutionary movement. Then going by the dictum, be the change you want to see in this world. If we want to see revolutionary change, then the question becomes, how do you start a revolutionary movement? Okay. Now, a quote from Machiavelli, who was a Renaissance political scientist, political philosopher. He said, quote, "There's nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, and nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things." So starting a revolution, initiating a new order of things is actually really, really hard, really, really difficult. So then how do we go about it? How do we do it? Well, if something is so hard, often we can learn from history. Now, if we look at the most powerful revolutionary movements in the entire world in the past 500, 1,000 years, okay, there's two factors behind all these movements, either working singly or together, that really has given these movements their strength. And I'll show exactly why a little later on in the talk. Look at all these revolutions in the world, all around the world, the biggest revolutions that faced opposition that was actually disciplined, strong and powerful and vital. Now, there are some revolutions where your opposition is fading, like say 19th century revolutions in South America. The opposition was the Spanish Empire. One, it didn't hardly existed, and it was thousands of miles away across the Atlantic Ocean. So the opposition was so weak that the revolutionary movement didn't have to be that powerful. And also the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet Empire. Even though these were revolutionary movements, basically the opposition, the actual incumbent powers had crumbled from within. But these revolutionary movements here actually face well-organized, well-disciplined, well-funded and vital powers that be. Okay, these two factors which have given these revolutionary movements their power and strength is one, the Apocalypse Archetype, and two, Esoteric Religion. Now, at this point, I need to basically explain what is the Apocalypse Archetype and what is Esoteric Religion. And it's this. Now, the Apocalypse Archetype, all the world's religions contain prophecies, and it's a basic storyline in all the world's religions. It's an idea of a cosmic battle between light and dark, kind of pitched battles between forces of good and evil. And out of that battle comes this kind of age of purity and light, this kind of heaven on earth, this kind of new order, this better world. And you know the story because you know the story of Dune, Star Wars, Matrix, Lord of the Rings. So there's basic storylines actually in modern myth. So you know the story, but it's actually part of world religion. It's actually to do with prophecies, predictions for the future. So that's the Apocalypse Archetype. Now, what is Esoteric Religion? Okay, this is an interesting idea about religion. Now, religion exists without exception on two levels. All around the world, there's two levels of religion. There's what's called, in this diagram, the different religions. The outer circle represents exoteric religion, and the inner circle represents esoteric religion. Now, exoteric religion, that's the religion you know. That's the religion that you see on TV, the religion of churches, Bible, Quran. That's the religion that everyone's familiar with. Exoteric, you see it. You grow up with it. And it's the religion where the religions don't agree. It's the religion that will never reconcile with science, the fantasies, fables, and fairy tales, the senseless rules, rituals, and regulations. So it's basically what we normally understand as religion. But then there is also esoteric religion. Now, esoteric means hidden, means that there's a religion which actually most people are unaware of. Interestingly, esoteric religion is where world religion agrees. It's where world religion actually meets science. So ideas in science, like the idea John Wheeler, who worked with Albert Einstein, saying there's no out there according to quantum mechanics, this idea that somehow reality is illusory, that's an ancient mystical idea. The idea of fractals, that the universe is fractals, is an ancient idea. In the Upanishads, ancient Hindu mystical texts, as is the human body, so is the cosmic body, as is the human mind, so is the cosmic mind, as is the atom, so is the universe, and as is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. This idea that the whole reflects the parts. So this is where science converges with religion. And esoteric religion, essentially the central idea in esoteric religion is the Christ within, Buddha within, Allah close to you, then your jugular vein. Somehow God is inside you. Somehow we're made in the image of God. Somehow the transcendent image reflects somehow our lives. and ultimately somehow all these different names for God, somehow that we are God, that all is one, that somehow when we experience ourselves as that oneness, as being God, that's not illusory, that's actually reality, that the illusion is actually me being here on this planet in this body as a human being. That there is this transcendent experience of being God, being the image of God and realizing yourself as totality. That's the key idea in all the esoteric traditions. We're going to return to this in the end part of the talk. So I know there's probably going to be some Marxists and atheists here who are going to say, my God, that's nuts. We're going to fully explain this esoteric truth in the end. But even now, I mean, what's important, even if you don't quite fully understand the esoteric bit, for this discussion is that what's important is that all through the years, all through history, there's been an important political interaction between esoteric religion and exoteric religion. Okay, so exoteric religion, the religion that you know, is also the religion of state. It's the religion of power and control. It's the religion of Marx, the opium of the people. It's the religion of the popes, the Roman emperors, the Carlists of Islam. Whereas esoteric religion is the religion of the founders of religion and the mystics. Now the political interplay all through the ages has been one of mutual antagonism. So not only is that there's this division in religion that people like Richard Dawkins, John Gray, even Karl Marx has completely ignored and has been completely ignorant of. Not only are these two separate demarcations in religion, but all through the centuries, particularly in Islam and Christianity, these two divisions have actually mutually been fighting each other in a mutual antagonism. Now the pattern has been the religion of state, the religion of the Caliphs, Roman emperors, trying to kill the esotericists, trying to destroy the Sufis, the Shiites, the Knights Templars, and Freemasonry. Okay. Now I know some people are going to carry some baggage from conspiracy theory, but I'm going to introduce another view of things, another view of looking at things. It's this idea that the religion of state has tried to destroy esoteric religion, but there's been also an opposite interaction, that esoteric religion has started some of the most powerful revolutionary movements that have overturned the powers of state. And that's what we're interested in this talk. So, okay, Apocalypse Archetype and Esoteric Religion. Now, what we're going to do is actually just quickly go through these revolutionary movements like a skimming stone, just go over a kind of broad swathes of world history to show that indeed, either acting in singly or in combination, that esoteric religion and the Apocalypse Archetype has been found in all these powerful revolutionary movements, just like a skimming stone now, just to give the foundations for the case I'm about to present. Now starting with China, now China has lots of history, so I made another diagram just to concentrate on China. Now, the Mongols invaded in 2071. Kublai Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, invaded and founded the Yuan dynasty. And they were hated by the Chinese. So what emerged was White Lotus movements. These were Buddhist Maitreyists, as an apocalyptic. Maitreya means Messiah in Buddhism. So the White Lotus movements were a kind of mystical sect. They were involved in meditation practices, martial arts, but they were heavily apocalyptic. And the White Lotus gets its name from the Lotus Sutra. If you're a Nam-myoho Renge-kyo Buddhist, that's the same Lotus Sutra that you're going to read. So it's actually a quite important Buddhist text. Now the Lotus Sutra is actually heavily mystical because it contains hierarchy of Buddhas, infinity of Buddhas. And the hidden message in the Lotus Sutra is essentially you are the Buddha. So Gnostic, very esoteric. And the Yuan dynasty was finally overthrown by a coalition of these White Lotus Buddhists and Manichaeans from Western China. Now, Manichaeanism is a form of Gnosticism, again, esoteric religion, Gnosticism, with a heavy apocalyptic aspect. You've known the expression, a Manichaean struggle between good and evil. That's where it comes from, the Manichaean sect. So essentially, you have a coalition between esotericists and apocalyptic thinking in these two groups that overturned the Mongols. So the first Ming emperor was actually a beggar boy turned a Buddhist monk turned rebel leader. He became the first Ming emperor. So everything was all tranquil for a bit. Then the Manchurians invaded in 1644, and they were like the Mongols. They were like barbarians, a warrior tribe from northeastern China. What's China now, but it was Manchuria back then. The White Lotus movements returned, made a return, and they kind of like, even though they were defeated, they kind of destroyed the myth of Manchu invincibility, which paved the way for the Taiping Rebellion. Now, the Taiping Rebellion is a straight apocalyptic movement. It actually comes from the Bible, from Christian missionaries. This guy called Hongzhi Kang became this kind of like figure who started an apocalyptic mass movement, and it almost took over China. They almost succeeded in overthrowing the Manchus. It's only because the Manchurians went into a coalition with Western powers, particularly the German, French, and British, that this rebellion was defeated. So a purely apocalyptic movement. Eventually, the Qing dynasty was overthrown, the last emperor in the early 20th century, and they were overthrown by the Chinese Nationalist Party, which was heavily infiltrated. It was really made up of triads. Now triad gets its name from a Taoist symbol, a triad, which means a triad between man, heaven, and earth, shows that man, heaven, and earth are essentially one and the same. Again, it's a Gnostic idea, that which is temporal and eternal and transcendent. It's actually one and the same. Essentially, the Taoist idea that you are the Tao, you are God, you are that which is divine and eternal. And even in Hong Kong now, triads are called heaven and earth societies. So they're like Kung Fu esotericists, essentially, believe in mystical Taoism. And so Sun Yat-sen, Chiang Kai-shek were both rumored to be involved in triads, but they definitely were involved in an organization called Chinese Freemasons. We'll return to Freemasonry in a minute. Now, the Chinese nationalists fought it out with the Marxists and Leninists of Chairman Mao, the Chinese Communist Party. Now here you might think this is where the esoteric apocalyptic link and chain ends, because surely Marxism's atheist. I mean, what can that possibly have to do with esoteric religion and apocalypticism? Well, absolutely everything. Because when we examine the history of Marxism, we find something really, really interesting. So we're just going down our diagram now. Now, Karl Marx was a follower of Hegel. Okay, Hegel was a philosopher. Now Hegel, rumored to be an Illuminati, involved in the Illuminati. Now Hegel believed he was God. He called his God absolute. He believed he was the absolute. In his writings, effectively, he's saying he's the final messenger. Now, Marxian dialectic comes from Hegelian philosophy. It's this cosmic battle between your synthesis, antithesis, making your new synthesis, etc. But that's essentially mystical cosmology. But in his scheme, his work was the end product of that process. So effectively, he's saying he's the final messenger in his own work. So Hegel was essentially mystical and essentially heavily esoteric, even though if Marx was atheistic. Now also, Marxism derives heavily from the Bible, because the 4 ages of Marx, describes a 5th age, which is a return to communism, but is a return, the first age is primitive communism, so it's a cyclical, it's actually 4 ages. That comes straight from the book of Daniel, an apocalyptic work. And also, if you have this cosmic battle between good and evil in the Bible and in religion, what Marxism describes is this cosmic battle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie for this workers' paradise. And in the Internationale, the communist anthem, it goes, "This is our last and final struggle, and then there would be no more struggles and all would be peace." Now that is a pretty apocalyptic statement, isn't it? So you see, even though Marxism is avowedly atheistic, it actually derives from esoteric religion and apocalypticism in a direct manner. Now, NSDAP, or Nazi Party, this is where I kind of lose some people. They kind of go, oh my God, he's a triad, he's a communist, and he's a Marxist, and he's a Nazi. Oh God, nothing to sort. Okay, we're going to explain. Okay, even those revolutions are somehow, they're quite negative. We're going to explain how to stop your revolution going evil later on in the talk. Okay, so just kind of qualify. We're actually going to talk about the Nazi Party. Now, the Nazi Party started off as a revolutionary movement. So they were the underdogs. They were the kind of like, they wanted to challenge the Weimar Republic. So they really were the kind of like people, they tried to march on Berlin, a kind of small militia, and they got downed in a hail of bullets. Hitler went to Landsberg prison, and then he had a rethink, and then he went into politics, got into power through elections, and then he gained dictatorial powers. But essentially, the Nazi Party was a revolutionary movement. Now, if we examine the history of the Nazi Party, essentially the roots derive from this guy called Guido von List, who was a heavily influential German-Austrian mystic who taught everyone is God, this recurring theme in mysticism and German idealistic philosophy as well. Now, every major German-Austrian city in the late 19th century had a List society. And when Guido von List died at the end of the First World War, the Munich branch renamed itself the Tula Society. Same people, just a new name because the guy's dead. Now Tula decided they wanted to enter politics, so Anton Drexler, rail yard worker, formed the German Workers' Party. And then September of 1919, a year after the First World War ended, in walked Adolf Hitler to a very small meeting, and he was sent to spy on the German Workers' Party because the name suggests it was a socialist left-wing insurrectionist group. Now, he discovered it was a rabidly racist right-wing insurrectionist group, and he liked what he heard, and he became the leader, changed the name from the DAP, German Workers' Party, to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, abbreviated Nazi, and the rest is history. Now, all the first leaders of the Nazi Party were heavily, heavily esoteric. Himmler, Rudolf Hess especially, and many of the Tula Society people, of course, but also Hitler himself. So again, it's esoteric strain in the Nazi Party, which continued right until 1945 in their defeat. And as for the apocalyptic element, if we had a kind of struggle between good and evil in religion and a struggle between bourgeoisie and proletariat in Marxism, what we have here is not class war, it's race war. He's saying the Aryans are this master race, because the race of God-men who degenerated their genes by interbreeding with subhuman species. And through this breeding program called the SS, you can actually regenerate the full fruit race, perfect Aryan, God-man Aryan with psychic powers. That's Nazi ideology. It's nuts, but that's what they believed. And you have this cosmic battle between Aryans and non-Aryans, particularly the nemesis of the Aryan race, the Jews, for this 1,000-year Reich, straight out of the Bible, 1,000-year reign of Christ. You see what's happening? So we see in the early Nazi literature, in their speeches, it was clearly, heavily apocalyptic. They used the conditions of the Weimar Republic in an apocalyptic way, and it worked brilliantly because they gained power very effectively. Now, the American, French, Turkish revolutions, you might go to a kebab shop and the guy down there will lament that his country is run by Freemasons. It's actually right, because the Turkish revolution was led by Freemasons. Ataturk, the Young Turks were all Freemasons. So the judiciary, the police, the army is probably almost like 100% upper echelons led by Freemasons. And that's why Turkey has good relations with Israel, and that's why Turkey is probably more, has a relationship with NATO because of this link. Probably, we're going to speculate. Now, the American revolutions, half the American generals, most of the main signers of the American Declaration of Independence, most of the signers of the Constitution, all Freemasons. The first president, George Washington, Freemason, and the same kind of pattern for the French revolutions. Now, the idea is that Freemasonry, that Gnosticism in the West never got extinguished by the Catholic Church. That Gnosticism, even though all the Gnostics were hunted down by the Inquisition, that Gnosticism survived as Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism. So all the kind of symbolism in Freemasonry is essentially the mysteries of Osiris, Mithras, of the mystery religions, i.e. Gnosticism. So there's been a golden age in the past where Freemasonry actually did good things, actually toppled rulers in this world, actually formed revolutionary movements. Now we see them as these powerful men who are potentially tyrants now, but in a few hundred years ago, they were the revolutionaries, they were toppling kings, and they were the underdogs being hunted down by the Catholic Church, by the monarchs of Europe. So again, esotericism in Freemasonry. Now the English Civil War, it came about through, the whole Puritan thing came about through the fact that the Bible was translated into the common vernacular, English. And then suddenly, people in Europe could suddenly read the Bible for themselves, and they read all the stuff that the Catholic Church cut out. And what the Catholic Church cut out was the apocalypticism, and the Catholic Church also cut out the Christ within. So that's kind of like an allusion to the mystical idea that somehow God is within you, that somehow you are God. Now, when these Puritans read about these ideas, it launched this kind of revolutionary fervor. Suddenly, you had these kind of socialistic ideas, especially in the Acts of the Apostles, and suddenly these are ideas which were never taught by the Roman Church. So what it created was this Puritan movement, and suddenly the idea of the divine rule of kings, right of kings to rule, suddenly went out the window, because they're seeing, Christ is inside me. Why should I accept that the priest is my intercessor? So we know that the New Model Army were Puritans. Many of them were veteran soldiers, but they were selected for their religious fervor. And we know from the speeches, the sermons given to the New Model Army, from their letters, that they fervently believed they were the saints that were going to bring about the rule of Christ. So it was a heavily apocalyptic army. And Oliver Cromwell himself believed in his letters, we know that he allowed Jews to come back to England because he thought it's going to hasten the coming of Christ. So Oliver Cromwell, as well as the New Model Army, was heavily, heavily apocalyptic. If you take away the apocalypticism, then it's arguable that the new model army might not have had the kind of fervour and the kind of discipline it might have had. And we'll explain why in a minute, when we explain why apocalypticism and esoteric religion is so powerful. Now, in Islam, Shia Islam is essentially mystical Islam. And Sufi Islam is also the mystical strain in Sunni Islam. Lots of new words. Now Shiite means, comes from an expression meaning party of Ali, okay? And the idea is that Muhammad taught Ali, his cousin and son-in-law, the batin, which is the hidden meanings, the esoteric meanings of Islam, of the Quran, of the sayings of Muhammad. So all Sufi groups, except one, trace their lineage to Imam Ali. And obviously Shiites means the party of Ali. So essentially Shiite Sufi is esoteric Islam. And the Shiites have a heavy emphasis on apocalypticism, on Muslim apocalypticism. And almost without exception, all insurrections in Islam have come from either Sufis or Shiites or Mahdeists, so either apocalyptic or esoteric. The Safavi were a Sufi order in the 15th century, and they converted Sunni Persia into Shiite Persia, so that's why Iran now is Shiite. And the reason why Sunni monarchs and rulers are constantly obsessed and paranoid about this idea of Shiite insurrection taking over their country is that there's a precedent. Essentially, Shia Islam is really a revolution waiting to happen. It's to do with the history of Islam, but Shia Islam is heavily esoteric and it's heavily apocalyptic. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the main political force in Egypt now, I mean, it really is 46% of the poll in a recent election just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Hassan al-Banna, his dad was a Sufi master. He was heavily involved in Sufism. And the main ideologue, Sayyid Qutb, was also heavily involved in Sufism. And so this survey in Islam, in the West, Germany, and all through China, we're seeing this kind of pattern happening. Some of you are saying, but surely maybe this is coincidence. I mean, this guy's talking about religion and apocalypticism. Maybe it's just, it's coincidental. I mean, it's people used to believe in funny things, and maybe it has nothing to do with why these revolutions are successful. Well, we're going to quickly analyze exactly why these two factors, apocalypticism and esoteric religion, is not just incidental, it's actually instrumental. It's why these revolutions succeeded. Because once we do that, then once we understand why these two factors were so important in giving these revolutions their power and what led them to success, we can take this analysis and then we can use it to construct a 21st century revolutionary ideology. Okay, so we're going to do our analysis now before we have a little break. Now, okay. Now, why does esoteric religion cause revolutionary movements to be successful? Now, the first and obvious reason is because, as I explained, through history, particularly in Christianity and Islam, there's been this kind of antagonism between esoteric religion and exoteric religion. So obviously the esotericists have come up with organizational and operational forms to survive. And one of those forms is called taqiyya in Islam, or dissimulation. It basically means pretending to be what you're not. You're a Shiite or a Sufi living in a Sunni community, and if you're discovered you're a Shiite or Sunni, you're going to be killed. Your family and yourself are going to be killed. So you basically pretend to be a Sunni. Okay, you pretend to be through generations, not just for a while, but through it's a way of life through many generations. You basically have to hide your true beliefs. Now, if you have to hide your true beliefs, then it's actually good to know, if you're walking around a Sunni society, to identify your co-religionist. So what you do is you develop a system of signs and signals, like secret handshakes and secret little kind of signs to signal to someone you think might be a Shiite or a Sufi that, hey, look, are you a brother? Okay, so it's useful to do that. And triads in China, I mean, Chinese people drink a lot of tea, so you hold your cup in a particular way if you want to signal to somebody who you think might be a triad that, are you? So it's believed that Freemasonry got its funny handshakes from Islam, from particularly the Ismaili sect during the Crusades, brought to Europe. And so basically you have to really be like a sleeper, like an underground operator. So you basically have to hide your true identity. And then when you get into revolutionary activity, this is actually really useful. You're already hidden, you see. The fact that you practice Tachyon dissimulation, it also means you meet secretly in lodges or these secret meeting places, obviously. Once you know each other, you have to meet, but then you meet in secret. But then these places are perfect for plotting revolutionary movements. And also, cell structure for resilience is that once you have these groups of Sufis or Shiites or Gnostics or whatever, you have a cell structure where each cell only knows its neighboring cells. There's no, kind of hierarchy or overarching command. So if the authorities discover one cell, then they're rumbled. They might be able to get information about neighboring cells, but they can't infiltrate the entire movement. There is the idea that the modern terrorist cell or modern revolutionary cell actually derives from esoteric religion. We know that the Muslim Brotherhood, when they were persecuted by Nasser in Egypt, many people say they survived because they had that Sufi cell structure. They had this organizational structure from Sufism. That's what allowed them to survive. And many commentators have observed that the initiation ritual for an Al-Qaeda cell is actually straight from Sufism. Okay, now the second reason why esoteric religion, or the religion behind religion, is truly revolutionary, is because this idea that God is inside you, that somehow in Christ there's no Jew, there's no Greek, there's no slave, that somehow we're all one. Not just one flesh, but somehow one soul, that ultimately in our deepest essence, we are one and the same. Even in the Beatles lyric, I am he as you are he and you are me and we're all together. I mean, John Lennon's often described as a modern day Gnostic. So this recurring idea of oneness, unity and sameness is really the basis for radical egalitarianism. If you want to start a revolutionary movement, you need radical egalitarianism. The Enlightenment ideals of equality, liberty, fraternity really derive from esoteric religion. And more than that, obviously spiritual ideas derive from esoteric religion, but also Renaissance ideas derive from esoteric religion. We know that that humanism, Renaissance humanism, came from the corpus hermeticum, the humanistic idea that somehow the human being is the measure of all things. Why should this collection of selfish genes, this meat machine, be the measure of all things? That's what modern day secular humanists can't explain. It's because this body, this life, this person, as we all are made in image of God, as above, so below. That somehow we reflect the universe, we reflect the transcendent. And that's the reason why this humanistic idea, that somehow human life is very precious, that somehow there's something divine in the human being. Okay, so this is actually a radically revolutionary idea. The Freemason, alleged Freemason thinker, Enlightenment philosopher, said something quite interesting I read a few weeks back. He said, men shall never be free, okay, men and women shall never be free, I'm paraphrasing, until the last king has been strangled with the entrails of the last priest. That's obvious that monarchy and religion has been used to suppress people and control people. But once you understand that God is inside you, then you know that the idea of intercession, that the Pope, that the priest intercedes on your behalf, is your advocate in heaven, is a load of nonsense. So why do I need the Pope and the priest? Why should I buy your indulgence if God is inside me? So inherently, esoteric religion is revolutionary. And it empowers us and frees us from fear. The direct mystical experience of being God, knowing that you're eternal, actually frees people from fear. And because fear is the main tool that tyrants use to control people, that is very subversive. Now, the last an important reason why esoteric religion has been so powerful in triggering these revolutionary movements and making them successful. Now, you think I might be joking, it's probably the most important reason, is what's called schizotypal spectrum disorder in the dopaminergic brain. It's this idea that schizophrenia and schizotypal disorder is something which makes us human. So what's making us mad is also what's making us human. So everyone exists on a schizotypal spectrum. On the far extreme, obviously, that's schizophrenia. But near that extreme is actually excellence, actually borderline insane. These people are often charismatic and talented and high achievers and creative and inventive. So many, now Francis Galton, who was Charles Darwin's cousin, he wanted to eliminate all mad genes from the Victorian gene pool. Now he realized, looking at family trees, he couldn't do this because he realized if he eliminated all the insane genes, he also wiped out all the great families in Victorian society. There's actually a relationship between insanity. This is quite widely believed, and people speculate on this now, that there's a relationship between insanity and creativity and excellence and high intelligence, and this is what psychiatrists are actually discovering. So you have too much of this, you're insane. If you have just enough, okay, you're slightly wacky, but you're actually doing nicely. Now they find that people in creative professions, actors, high achievers, Nobel Prize winners, there's a higher statistical chance that their first, second, third degree relatives will have schizophrenia. And vice versa. So Einstein's son has schizophrenia. It's a regular pattern in these high achievers. And vice versa. Schizophrenics tend to have first, second, third degree relatives who do interesting things, who excel. So this idea that schizotypal spectrum disorder and dopamine, which basically brings on schizophrenia, if you enhance dopamine, then you also bring on schizophrenic symptoms. If you depress dopamine, then you actually take away those Florida symptoms. But dopamine is also the chemical of motivation and behavioral addiction as well. What's also interesting is that schizotypals tend to be inordinately interested in philosophy, religion, and mysticism. Get into what psychiatrists call magical thinking. These schizotypals tend to be interested in strange coincidences called synchronicities. And because I know some of you in this room, I can tell you that there's a high proportion of schizotypal people in this room who have come to this very special venue to hear a completely unknown speaker talk about revolutionary movements. I can actually predict that probably most of you have a very high schizotypal loading. So that's a compliment. that's not a diagnosis, that's a compliment. So, I mean, it's an obvious idea that history has been pushed forward by the inspired, the infused, the charismatic. But these words betray their mystical origins, because charisma comes from a Greek word which means gift from above, gift from heaven. Obviously inspired, inspire, to somehow receive the spirit. Enthusiasm, theo, the root to theology, somehow you're receiving something divine. So this idea that schizotypal personality disorder gives you this kind of connection with an affinity for esoteric religion. Now some people might think, oh, to have esoteric beliefs, it's going to, your average sun reader is going to say, what the hell is this? Reject these ideas. But what I'm saying is you need a certain kind of person to kickstart a revolutionary movement, and these people are generally schizotypal. Kind of borderline and slightly difficult to get along with, and slightly nuts, but they're the kind of people you want. Okay, and that's, you need an evolutionary vanguard, and this evolutionary vanguard, they won't be normal. Anyway, just moving on. Okay, so that's the reason why esoteric religion is actually not just coincidental, incidental. It's actually causing these revolutionary movements to be potent and successful. Now, okay, this is really, really powerful. Why does the Apocalypse Archetype cause these revolutionary movements to be so successful? And it's this. Okay, in behavioral psychology, there's not that much that's profound, but what is profound is the training paradigms in behavioral psychology. And just to make it graphic, this is going to alienate some people in the audience, but just to make it graphic, basically, it's the most fundamental thing about how we train ourselves, how we train my 2.5-year-old daughter. You reward her. I mean, I hate, kind of corporal physical punishment, but signs of disapproval, you actually condition her behavior. And, these ways we actually train ourselves and train people. But what we're trying to do here is to condition people to get involved in revolutionary movements. So we're trying to basically inspire people and also shape behavior in such a way that they become interested in getting involved and undertaking these ventures. Now, the conditioning paradigms are some of these are so obvious, it's so fundamental to your life, it's going to seem so obvious. Obviously, escape training is to do with the fact that if you create a disturbance, a state of discomfort, it means that you do something, you can make yourself comfortable again. And what you do is reinforced. Okay, that's escape training. And punishment training is basically is so obvious. Basically, once you punish, you stop doing it. Also, you avoid that punishment. And also, omission training is when you enjoy something, but you have to keep doing something to keep what you enjoy. And obviously, this is the most obvious, reward training. You do something, you're rewarded, you want to do it again and again, and you gravitate to doing that thing. Now, mice and rats, okay, you need to give them shocks. You need to, I don't do it personally. I'm just saying, supposing a behavioral psychologist would give them shocks. I mean, but we are not rats and mice. We're not conditioned necessarily by shocks and pain and pleasures, because human beings are conditioned by ideas. Now, I've never been run over by a car before, but the idea of being run over by a car conditions my behavior, so I tend to avoid oncoming traffic. And also the idea of reward, like advertising, actually motivates people to behave. The idea of punishment, just the mere idea, motivates people to do things and shapes our behavior. Now, what the Apocalypse Archetype does, okay, it creates a storyline where all these conditioning paradigms are embedded in the storyline. So think about it. Escape training, you're basically the Satan, the Antichrist, the evils of this world that's going to really cause you loads of pain. This is what we normally associate with revolutionary behavior, agitation. You're creating an upset. You're saying what's wrong with the world. And also punishment training is basically the doom ahead, the Antichrist, the absolute apocalypse that's going to occur. It's going to be really bad unless we do something, folks. So that's the kind of like the punishment paradigm. And the mission training, what you're going to lose, your nature, your good life, your freedom, that's what you're going to lose when the Antichrist takes over. And of course, the most important aspect is the reward aspect, the promised land. This heaven on earth that's going to be realized by this revolutionary movement. So you see, what we're doing is we're pressing those buttons of conditioning, but we're pressing them to the max. We're talking about absolute pleasure, absolute doom, absolute reward. So you see what's happening. And this is the reason why movies like Star Wars, Dune, Matrix, and Lord of the Rings are so fundamental and powerful, have such a powerful effect on people, because they use the Apocalypse Archetype. They really press people's buttons. So what the Apocalypse Archetype does, it creates a narrative, a storyline that actually pushes all these buttons. Now people are not so good at processing individual facts, but people are very good at processing narratives. So when you put all these kind of things in a kind of narrative, then it's actually very effective. So you have a whole bunch of ideas which conditions people, presses people's behavior towards revolutionary activity. So this is absolutely fundamental to how we learn behavior. So the Apocalypse Archetype involves giving a narrative frame for these fundamental aspects of how we train ourselves. Secondly, it gives a storyline where you actually create the Deus Ex Machina. You actually create the agency that's going to realize the promised land, is going to deal with the Antichrist, going to deal with the evils of this world. So it's basically, like, here's what's wrong with the world, here's the promised land, and here's the movement, brother, here's the revolution, comrade. So you actually, in the storyline, you create the movement. That's actually the Deus Ex Machina, which resolves the plot in the storyline. You see what's happening? So it's the agency which causes us, the agency which is going to solve these problems. Once you press people's buttons, then you have to show them how you're going to resolve that upset, that disturbance. Now, the third part of the Apocalypse Archetype, which gives it the power, is absolute certainty of success, because it's a storyline, but it's also, you're saying that this is the will of God, that providence is on your side, the force is with us. By invoking religion and prophecies, you have this other dimension to kind of create a kind of a fervor, a kind of self-belief and a confidence that without is unlikely that your revolutionary endeavor is going to succeed, because you're basically asking people to do something very reckless and very dangerous. So you need to give them a certainty of success. Look, we're going to succeed. There's no absolute, this is a surefire way of actually realizing the promised land. Now where the earlier cases of the Nazi Party and Marxism, which are not so religious but mystical, I mean, even you don't have that kind of, you're not invoking God, but even in Marxism, you're saying, in Marxist ideology, you're saying, this is a scientific analysis of world history. It was nothing of the sort, but people believe that, Marxists believe that their ideology is a scientific analysis of world history, and the victory of the proletariat is absolutely certain. Now we know it's nonsense now, but I'm saying to these Marxist revolutionaries, that's what they believed. And the Nazi Party, I mean, they had this idea of survival of the fittest from Darwinism. You can trace a lineage of ideas from Darwinism, social Darwinism, eugenics, what was called in Germany racial hygiene, to theozoology, which Hitler got into, and then Nazi ideology. This idea of survival of the fittest. But Nazi ideology says that we are the fittest. We are the Aryan master race. Therefore, it's a certainty we're going to win. So it's kind of built-in cast iron certainty that you need to actually make your revolutionary movement succeed. So these two factors, I hope to have shown, is not just incidental or coincidental, but is actually instrumental in why all these revolutionary movements in the past 500,000 years were successful in actually overturning the powers they challenged. Now, before we take a break for 15 minutes, I'll stay and answer questions. Okay, we're going to basically take our analysis and we're going to flesh out our analysis with 21st century issues and 21st century concerns. And we're basically going to use our analysis of these revolutionary movements of the past to create, using the skeleton, using what makes these revolutionary movements so powerful, we're going to create a 21st century revolutionary ideology. That's absolutely going to surefire going to succeed. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take our analysis of apocalyptic ideology and esoteric religion. We're basically, if the first talk was a history lesson and a kind of psychological analysis, what we're going to do now is go to the modern world and what's happening in the world today. Okay, so we're going to go back to our Apocalypse Archetype, and we're going to actually flesh it out with the issues of the age. So Apocalypse Archetype is like using conditioning paradigms to condition revolutionary behavior. Now we're going to flesh it out with the show how you construct 21st century apocalyptic ideology using the archetype. So I mean, the escape response, I mean, this is like political agitation. So in your 21st century apocalyptic narrative, it's basically all the ills of the world. Like you need to generate kind of moral outrage. Alan Greenspan, who said, I'm saddened, but it's inconvenient to admit the truth that the Iraq war is largely about oil. So 600,000 people, according to a Lancet report, died for the sake of cheap oil. It's moral outrage. What's happened in the world today? The kind of bankers, the banksters, the corruption, the kind of like the shift of wealth, spending cuts, the kind of like A&E's closing down, so banksters can have their bailouts. So basically, you're framing all the kind of ills of the modern society, economic, political landscape, and you're framing it in a kind of apocalyptic framework. So you're listing all these kind of what's wrong with the world in order to create a kind of state of agitation in people, saying that things are not okay. So that's obvious. Okay, that's what people normally associate with revolutionary rhetoric and ideology. Now this is also very powerful. The punishment, the doom ahead, is what we talked about earlier. That in this apocalyptic narrative, it's basically rising sea levels, global warming, this this kind of impending doom, kind of another 3-4 billion people, the fisheries, the arable land being denuded, energy crises, etc., etc., etc. So this is the doom ahead. If we don't do anything, it's going to be really, really bad. It's going to be absolutely catastrophic. Okay, but you're fitting it in an apocalyptic narrative. And the emission is what you lose. What you're going to lose is the birds and the bees, the kind of like sparrows. They don't exist anymore. I mean, in many places. I mean, as a child, being a bird watcher, as a little teenage boy, I mean, sparrows were common as anything, but now you can't see a sparrow anymore. What's happened to them? The bees are dying out. What you're going to lose if you don't fight for your rights, you're going to lose them. It's a classic, revolutionary one-liner. So emission training, and this is the most important. Okay, in this revolutionary worldview, you need to give people a promised land, a kind of articulation of the future that's so bright, compelling, but also has to be believable and convincing. And it's basically the idea that somehow we can have a world without war. $1.46 trillion is spent each year on arms. If we can have that's the peace dividend. If we can survive the next 10, 20 years, I mean, the world, we can create a better world of justice, of a fairer, better world. I'll tell you something astounding. Okay, there's a thing on the horizon. If we survive this next 10, 20, 30 years, something is about to happen which is going to shake this world, and it's called the singularity. It's called the technological singularity. If you have an intuition that technology is accelerating, okay, technological advances get faster and faster, then you're actually right. And many technologists have analyzed that this curve is exponential, that at some point, some people estimate 2029, 2045, but soon in our lifetimes, this technological curve is going to go off the scale. And we're basically talking about technology that's really going to make all the technologies that we have in the world today seem, like something primitive. I'll tell you an absolutely astounding fact. Okay, this is absolutely astounding. Okay, 1 cubic kilometer of seawater contains as much energy in the form of deuterium, which is the raw ingredient for fusion reactors. Okay, 1 cubic kilometer contains as much energy as all the oil that's ever existed on this planet. Now that's not 14 Times or Nexus magazine, that's absolute scientific fact. And fusion power, we know it works because that's how the sun works. Now if we can crack fusion power, there's 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of seawater in the Earth's oceans. That is free energy, that is the future. So these energy crises, if we can survive the next 10, 20, 30 years, we will surely realize the technological singularity. And at the end of the talk, I'll tell you exactly why that's the case as well. So you have to create this promised land in our Apocalypse Archetype. It has to be bold, it has to be incredible, it has to be amazing, it has to inspire. So what we're seeing here completely plausible, in a completely plausible way, is something that's even better than Star Trek, something that makes the Venus Project look Luddites. How about Star Trek with enlightenment? So that's the promised land that we're kind of heading towards. Okay, so in our Apocalypse Archetype narrative, this is what we're trying to create. Now, in this revolutionary ideology, if we consider that esoteric religion is the engine, and that this Apocalypse Archetype is the kind of car, the car body, the chassis which will get us there. Okay, now what needs to do now? This revolutionary movement has to solve the problems of the world. We're not talking about revolution just for UK. We're talking about a world revolution. It has to be a world revolution. Now we're going to do a quick analysis of the problems of the world to show how the problems of the world can all be solved. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Okay. Now, this diagram is meant to represent all the problems of the world. Okay. Now, these problems are categorized in a way where this is most concrete and global, and this is most abstract. So these are the problems to do with the ecosystems and the environment, global warming, etc. This is most kind of like physical, manifesting on the planet. Now, the second back domino is what we normally think of as problems of the world: social, economic, and political problems. And the second domino is problems to do with ideology. And the first domino is problems to do in the realm of pure knowledge, i.e. science, religion, and theology. Now, firstly, the problems of the world are very interconnected, and this is one of the reasons why the problems seem absolutely intractable. So, for instance, within each domain, say the problems in the social, economic, political realms, all these NGOs do great work, but they run against a brick wall because what they can do is stymied by the interconnectedness of all the problems. So, for instance, poverty is influenced. You can help relieve poverty, but then the population explodes, and to alleviate poverty, you need to educate people, but then you can't tackle poverty without tackling populations. So you have a decent standard of living, then suddenly your population doubles, then suddenly that's gone. And also you can't tackle population unless you tackle women's rights, because it's been shown time and time again that if you empower women, then women make more sensible decisions about family size. If you make people, teach women to read, then they're empowered. Families get smaller and the kids get a better deal, more investment in time. So population actually decreases, or fertility rate decreases. Now, you can't tackle women's rights unless you tackle religious fundamentalism. If the Wahhabis say that Arabia 1300 years ago was the most advanced state of civilization, then women are in trouble, and that's why women have such a bad deal under religious fundamentalists in Islam, and so on. So you see this kind of interconnectedness between problems in the social, economic, political realms. As a few examples. And obviously, the environment will affect ecosystems and vice versa. If you destroy ecosystems, then global warming is exacerbated. Now, the second way that the problems are all interconnected is that they're interconnected globally. So all these problems, because it's a global world now, can't be solved just by one country. It's because it's a global world. Ideology spread all around the world, and problems in ideology in one country will spread very quickly into another country. And obviously, social, economic problems and political problems we see with these kind of bank crashes, they spread very quickly. And obviously, global warming is a global thing. So all these problems are connected globally, but countries are divided and can't get together to actually agree on any kind of common solution. Now, the last way that these problems are interconnected is by domain. So problems are interconnected by the domains. So the problems to do with the environment and the ecosystems of the world are kind of dependent on the social economic problems of this world. So if you suppose the entire world was remade anew, we had a new planet, everything was regenerated, but you didn't solve the social economic problems, then within a generation or two, you're back to square one again if you don't change the way societies and economic activity uses these kind of natural resources. And in the same way, in the social, economic, political realm, you might, jail a zillion corrupt politicians and bankers and, reform all these companies. But if you don't reform the ideologies which govern your world, then again, within a generation, you're back to square one again. We know that the problems of this world, they don't just naturally occur, they're actually caused by ideologies. that the world is governed by ideas. We know about neoliberalism, this tool used by these banking interests and by these elites to amass power. And we know the collusion between banks and academia to promote neoliberal ideas. And we also know that the idea of selfish genes evolutionary theory, we refer to Nazism earlier on, the lineage of ideas between social Darwinism, eugenics to Nazi ideology. I'm saying we are facing a second wave of a narrow-minded, one-sided view of evolutionary theory which ignores symbiosis, synergy and cooperation. But this is what's being taught in universities, and this is what's dominant. It's the books of Richard Dawkins that are flying off the shelf. Now, one of the corollaries of selfish genes Darwinism actually basically explains and justifies genocide. Because if you're basically trying to promote the survival of genes that are like you, i.e. the selfish gene, the flip-sided argument is that if you destroy genes that are not like you, i.e. genocide, you're also promoting your own genes. So that's the flip side that George Price, one of Dawkins' predecessors, explained, and actually he got so depressed by it, apparently he committed suicide in a squatter tenement, got so depressed, became a fundamentalist Christian by his own work. That's the upshot of his own work. And obviously religious fundamentalism, Zionism, Muslim fundamentalism, treatment of women in Islam, by these fundamentalists, and evangelicals. Dispensationalism, that believes that Jesus is going to appear in the sky, is going to lift up the born again and scorch the earth and then recreate the earth anew. That's one of the reasons why so many fundamentalist Christians don't believe or don't care about global warming. It's the reason why many workers in the Colorado nuclear weapons factory were fundamentalist Christians, believed they were building nuclear weapons so Jesus can use them to scorch the earth. I mean, this is, okay, if you're running a nuclear weapons factory, you hire fundamentalist Christians to build your nuclear weapons, don't you? You don't hire, people with a history of left-wing activism to work your nuclear weapons factories. So it's appalling. But I mean, it's not just nuclear weapons workers. It's actually people like Reagan and Caspar Weinberger. I mean, George Bush Jr. That's a question mark on him. He is born-again Christian. And okay, this is Ayn Rand's idea of absolute selfishness as a virtue. Now, Ayn Rand is actually very influential in America, apparently. I know that's not widely known in Europe. And the reason why, because if you believe, you believe that absolute selfishness is a virtue, you don't broadcast it, do you? Because it sounds rubbish, because it is rubbish. I mean, a Library of Congress study said, this is from the BBC documentary, that Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged was the second most influential book in America after the Bible. And it's you can't make it up. One of her closest followers, Ayn Rand, was actually Alan Greenspan, acolyte. They were actually that close. Now, Ayn Rand actually died lonely, and that's the upshot of this philosophy. But I'm saying it's very influential, especially in Silicon Valley, apparently. So it's basically this idea of absolute selfishness. If you wonder why some politicians and entrepreneurs and industrialists behave like they're absolutely selfish, it's because that's what they believe. It's really, if I didn't see a BBC documentary, if I didn't read Atlas Shrugged, if I didn't actually did research, then I'd say someone's making this up. But these are the kind of ideologies which really kind of rule this world. I'm saying these ideologies, unless you tackle these ideologies, then basically the problems of the world will never be solved. Now, going back to our earlier diagram. Now, these ideologies themselves depend on pure ideas, like philosophers like Ayn Rand, ideas from evolutionary theory, interpretations of the Bible and Quran. So this is the domain of pure idea, which then becomes ideology. Okay, so you see a kind of a dependency of ideas, that all these ideas are interlinked. So in order to create a social movement that's going to tackle all these problems of the world, that are interlinked within a domain, that are interlinked globally and interlinked, across domains. Then basically you either solve all the problems at once, or you're going to have a terrifically hard time solving each problem in isolation. Now, I know this sounds really, really ambitious, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen in London 2012 that's going to bring about this solution. Now, if you think about it, if we've only got 20, 30 years to avert this global catastrophe, then we're going to have to tackle all these problems at once. Now, it sounds wildly ambitious, but I'm saying something's going to happen in London 2012 which is going to make this very, very viable. It's going to actually make this also inevitable that this movement is going to be able to do this, and I'll tell you why. So in our movement, we got the Apocalypse Archetype, we're going to use Esoteric Religion as the engine, from our analysis earlier. Now, what we need to do is basically create a program or manifesto. We do it in 23 points because we need a lot of points because it's tackling all the world's problems. And we don't use 25 because the Nazis had a 25-point program, but we use 23 because it's a cool number that schizotypal people like. That, as we explained earlier, schizotypal people are often into magical thinking in numbers like 23, and they're the kind of people who are going to get involved in this kind of movement in the beginning. So it's a 23-point program. That's the reason why. This 23-point program, say, this is just like something like a draft or example. It's not, cast in stone. But okay, I'll explain it in a minute. These are your fundamentals because this is what everything else relies on. And it's in that order because, okay, you can't have peace without justice. If people feel that things aren't just, then they're not at peace, are they? But then you can't have justice without equality. You can't have, inequality and, some people get more justice than others because that's not justice. So this is kind of ordering. These are the fundamentals. The Enlightenment dictum, equality, liberty, fraternity, these are really the fundamentals on which everything else is based. Now, I say to you that something is going to be revealed in 2012 London that's going to be point zero on which you can base equality. In fact, this revelation, you can derive your entire 23-point program from this revelation, and it's going to be very authoritative. So anyone can make a wish list, a 23-point wish list, or a 10-point wish list, and there's many of them out there, aren't there? So people are saying, these Occupy movements, they don't really have an agenda. I mean, there's all these kind of like wishy-washy wish lists, and some are different, and some have different points, and some have different points from others. But how do we make a certain wish list, actually binding and get people to stick to it? And how do we make it so this wish list can't be changed? So, the idea that, how do you stop your revolution becoming the futile exercise of replacing one set of arseholes with another set of arseholes? Basically, you need a set of ideals that can't be changed by people who, often have big egos, that once they get in power, will sometimes lose their idealism. So you need some way of actually casting these ideals in stone, if you like, and getting people to rally around and believe in these ideals. Okay, we're going to come to the final section of the talk, because we're going to... I'll tell you what we need and what's going to appear in London 2012. Okay, so this is what we need. Okay, so if all the problems of the world are interconnected, then we need a way of unifying people. We need a way of unifying all the people of this world. Okay, all classes, all races, the 1% with the 99%, with the 1% of the 1%. We need a way of basically bridging religion, nationalities. We need a way of just bringing people together as one. And we need a way, as I said earlier, of basically giving a foundation to this 23-point program. And we also need a way of winning this battle in the realm of ideas. We need a way of basically challenging these ideologies. Now that sounds like a tall order. How do you take on religious fundamentalism? How do you take on Ayn Rand's absolute selfishness? How do you take on the scientific worldview? I know it sounds like a Herculean task, but something's going to happen. London 2012 is going to give us a certain victory. Okay. So this battle in the realm of ideas, okay, we need to basically topple the first domino that's going to basically give us a platform to basically challenge all the existing ideas of the world and give us an ideology based on equality, liberty, fraternity. We need to revive Enlightenment ideas. We need to revive humanistic ideas. We need to revive spiritual values. Okay, so it's going to take something powerful to realize that and then to challenge these existing doctrines which are basically the antithesis and oppose these humanistic enlightenment and spiritual values. And the first point I missed, basically we have a problem with esoteric religion and the Apocalypse Archetype. If to create this revolutionary movement and to re-evoke this power that's been part of these revolutionary movements of the past 500,000 years all around the world, the Apocalypse Archetype and Esoteric Religion. We have two problems, because the Apocalypse Archetype actually exists and it's strong in this world now, but there's a problem because it's passive. It's like dispensationalism. It's the idea that you wait for Jesus to appear in the sky. It's the idea in the New Age that you wait for the UFO mothership to land. So it's a passive thing. You wait to be transported up to another dimension. So you see what's happening. was we're trying to promote an apocalyptic ideology which is active. We create the this new kind of paradise on earth through revolutionary action. And also the problem with esoteric religion is actually degenerate. Basically, where everyone is God is strong in the New Age, in the psychedelic scene. And I talk about Freemasonry. Don't expect a revolution to start from Freemasonry, even if in the past they did start these revolutions. And also in the New Age, don't expect a revolution to emerge from the New Age, and don't expect the psychedelic crowd to, if they get off their asses, to stop smoking dope and charis to actually do something active. I mean, so there's a problem with esoteric religion. So we're faced with the problem of reviving our version of active mysticism, active esotericism, and active apocalypticism. And finally, we need a way of showing that this movement is actually the agency and giving people a way of, creating excitement. We need basically a worldview which allows us to basically bring about all these things we need. And this is what's going to happen in London 2012. But the worldview, okay, it's like a binding idea. If you have a set of ideas, the worldview is basically the Weltanschauung. It's a German expression which means worldview, heavily used in political science. The worldview is like the glue which sticks together all the separate ideas, but it needs a foundation that's going to basically be so compelling to give it authority to actually challenge these existing worldviews. So the problem with bringing about a new paradigm or a new worldview is that the existing paradigms and the existing worldviews don't want to be replaced, because people make money from those worldviews. People make money and have their power in those paradigms. But if those paradigms and those worldviews are causing all the troubles in this world and it's leading the world to inequality and injustice and also this global catastrophe, then we need an alternative worldview to challenge the incumbent powers and the incumbent worldview. So what can possibly give us this new worldview? And finally, I say this new worldview needs to encapsulate the entire zeitgeist. Now, zeitgeist, as Hegel used it, means the spirit of the age. It means all the issues of the age, all the kind of, the concerns of the age, the art of the age, the thoughts of the age, the sentiments of the age. The zeitgeist needs to capture the entire issue of the age, but also provide the solution, but also provide this kind of promised land of the Apocalypse Archetype. Now something is going to happen in London 2012, and it's not very long to wait. That's going to bring us all these things in a very short space of time. And I'm going to tell you what it is. Now this sounds like this guy's dreaming. It sounds like this guy's a dreamer. Well, he is a dreamer, but he's going to tell you how this dream's going to be realised. Okay. This is what's going to happen in London 2012. In London 2012, okay, basically what's going to appear, okay, absolutely going to change the world. It's a revolution in itself. It's going to basically turn the world upside down. Now, scientists and philosophers and kind of technologists think it's 50 to 100 years away, but I say it's in London now, 2012, going to be revealed. Basically, it's a final theory of the brain. And I'll tell you why it's final and definitive. So the final theory of the brain exists in London now. There's a huge gap in human understanding in technology. It's called how does the brain work? It's a huge thing we don't actually mainstream scientists don't understand. Now, if I tell you that this thing is going to emerge in 2012 and it's going to be in a very short space of time accepted by technologists, scientists and lay people in a very short space of time, and I'll show you why it's definitive and why it's going to be the case that this is going to really sweep the world and turn the world upside down. Okay, this final theory of the brain, it has a very special property. Okay, it's fractal. Which means, okay, fractal means self-similar, which means like these Russian dolls, okay, are fractal. Okay, that's actually a normal idea of a Russian doll. Now, this is a modified Russian doll, so it's self-similar. So the Russian dolls contained in it are like the main Russian doll, and take it to infinity, yeah? What I'm telling you is the brain theory is completely fractal. So how you can conceptualize neurons, you can conceptualize for the entire person and all the intermediate structures. In the same way these Russian dolls are nested, all the structures of the brain are nested in a Russian doll structure. Now, furthermore, this brain theory shows, okay, that's a fractal, that's another fractal. Okay, these are kind of like geometric fractals. And that's a kind of natural fractal, okay? That's a Romanesque broccoli or cauliflower. Now, what have I told you? That this brain theory isn't just about the brain. You can extrapolate from this brain theory into the universe. Now, if the brain is like Russian dolls, what I'm telling you is that the theory completely extrapolates to the universe. And I'll tell you why. Now, scientists are already doing this because they interpolate evolutionary theory into the brain. And someone like David Deutsch, the physicist, extrapolates epistemology into the universe. It says something to do with knowledge in the brain is happening in the universe. I'll show you how the universe is like Russian dolls, okay? So it's a cosmology. So the brain theory isn't just about what's in your head, it's about what's in the universe. I'll tell you why the universe is like Russian dolls. Okay, I'll start from the absolutely undeniable and go to the more exotic. It's undeniable that you start from a fertilized egg. That fertilized egg divides into 2, divides into 4, divides into 8, divides into 16, becomes all the cells in your body. But then all those cells in your body, they compete and they kind of travel around, but then they bind together. Bones, sinew, and skin. Somehow dividing one cell has become your entire body. And through bones, sinew, and skin, you become one person. Sure, that's obvious, okay? That's a biology lesson. Now also, so you start from a singularity to become this one person. Now, the human race started from a singularity. Now, some people say it's actually one progenitor human being, a couple, Adam and Eve, somewhere in Africa. Some people speculate someplace in China. But from this singularity, the human race, through tens of thousands of years, has spread out across the globe, has spread out, has competed. But surely, in our lifetimes, this human race is becoming bound as one through the jumbo jet, through the internet, through modern mass communications. We are surely becoming the global village. And these bonds, are becoming tighter and tighter. The issue now, is it going to be a one-world tyranny, or is it going to be a one-world paradise? One world, peace and just full world, just equal world. So this is basically what we're seeing from a singularity. Spreading of the human race is becoming this one world order, one global village. Now there's this idea, the universe also starts from the Big Bang Singularity. There's this idea that's entertained not just by religious people, the cosmic Christ, the universal Vishnu, the celestial Buddha, the idea that the universe will become one entity, one organism, and that entity is going to become enlightened. But that entity is God, but whose body is also the entire universe. So a very ancient mystical idea. But even technologists like Very Kurzweil, physicists like Frank Tipler, Teilhard de Chardin, the philosopher, they also speculate this idea that somehow the entire universe becomes as one. So you see, it's a fractal. As the entire universe is the kind of mother Russian doll, contains the kind of galactic Russian dolls, contains the planetary Russian dolls, as we are Russian dolls within the one world order, and then our brains is a continuation of this Russian doll. But what have I told you? The entire universe is one continuous Russian doll that contains all existence, all people, all entities, and all life forms. So the brain theory isn't just a brain theory, it's actually a theory about the universe. If I told you that the brain theory, the formalism in which it's expressed, now, these are some of the most cutting-edge ideas in modern science to do with physics and how most cutting-edge ideas, how they're looking at the universe now, the quantization of space and time, the information paradigm, and the fractal universe, obviously, and the evolutionary brain theories, and extrapolating from the brain to the universe, vice versa. And also, okay, this is a bit more specialized, and complexity theory. What if I told you that the brain theory is actually the consummation of all these threads, is actually where all these threads find a kind of unification. So it's not a kind of like theory which is going to be something new age or something that's going to be unrelatable to mainstream science. It's something that mainstream science is actually going to completely recognize as exactly what they need to know and what they need to realize in their theories. Now, so the brain theory is very much to do with the universe. So it actually answers questions about cosmology and science, and obviously the brain theory in itself is a scientific revelation. Now, if I told you that philosophy, all questions in philosophy, reduce to two questions, and they are epistemology and ontology. Okay, so all philosophy reduces to two questions. Now, epistemology is the question of how do you know? What is knowledge? So every question that a philosopher asks reduces to the question, why does the philosopher think that? Why does the philosopher think he or she knows that? But you're still left to ask the question of ontology. What is the nature of the existence of that asking the questions? And an ontology it forks into two options. One is called materialism, and the other is called idealism. One is the idea that it's material matter that's real. The other idea is that consciousness is real. Okay? If materialism is basically what most people believe, then idealism is an idea which has fallen out of favor, but it's actually a more consistent option. What if I told you that this brain theory can show how consciousness is primary and how we can reduce all existence to consciousness by reducing existence to one consciousness? Now, what have I told you? Okay, what have I told you? That the mystery of consciousness and the mystery of God are one and the same. Now, there's this idea in science, it's called a God in the gaps. Now, scientists have this idea called a God in the gaps, and it's used in a way as to deride science. It's the idea that science has eliminated God through time. And it's said of a sense of derision, because it's said of the unspoken assumption that all the gaps are going to be eliminated, that God is going to be eliminated in the same way. Now, there's one humongous gap that science has not explained, and that's consciousness, mind and brain. Now, what have I told you? That the last gap to be turned over by science was basically where the true God was waiting to be discovered all along. And this goes back to earlier in the talk, the God of esoteric religion. There's an alternative to materialism. It's this idea that idealism is real. It's basically just another option. Now, quite simply, it's just another viewpoint, and materialism is flawed. There's reasons why it's flawed from the outset. Quantum mechanics, we said earlier, John Wheeler, who said, according to quantum mechanics, there's no out there. It's paradoxical. You know, if Germany won the war, then what would be the dominant position in academia would be idealism, because most German philosophers are idealistic. They believe that consciousness was primary. The trick has been to show how idealism works, how is everything consciousness. And the trick is to show that everything is one consciousness. Now, okay, this is more involved, it's metaphysics, and it's going to be another talk, the next talk of this kind of introductory talk. Okay, so it can actually show how everything's one consciousness, but we'll stick with the brain theory for now. Okay. So what we're seeing is basically a brain theory which revives mystical ideas, but also revives the idea that consciousness and God are one and the same. So what is Gnosticism, if not the idea that consciousness, this experience of being God, is the truth? So what we're seeing in Return of Idealism is basically the ancient Gnostic truth behind all world religion. And I'm saying, if you recognize that consciousness is God, then surely there's a relationship between consciousness and the brain, surely. Okay, consciousness doesn't reduce to the brain, but there's a corresponding relationship. What have I told you? That this brain theory not only extrapolates to the universe, but all these mystical ideas about the nature of God, metaphysical assertions about the nature of God, are all inherent in the brain theory. What have I told you? Okay, this is a table linking up. We showed earlier how aspects of the brain theory extrapolate into the universe. So science and the brain theory are actually one. So you have the Russian dolls, the universe and the brain is actually the same theory. Now, what have I told you? All these ancient mystical ideas are actually inherent in the brain theory. And it makes sense. If you understand that consciousness is God, then all these ancient ideas about God are actually inherent in the brain theory. I'm not saying the brain theory is analogous to or kind of metaphorically as these mystical ideas. I'm saying these ancient mystical ideas is the return of the truth of God. So this brain theory is a mystical revelation, as well as being a scientific and technological wonder. Now, okay, this is an idea of a cosmic tree in Tantra. This is the idea of a cosmic tree in Kabbalah, a cosmic tree in Sufism. And obviously neurons like trees. I'm saying it's fractal. The entire brain's like a tree and at all scales. So therefore, okay, we got basically, if people think of religion, science and philosophy as being mainly separate, okay, some intersection between science and philosophy, i.e. a philosophy of science. Now, lots of progressive people think there's a kind of like an intersection between science, religion and philosophy. What I'm saying is this final gap in our understanding in science, mind, brain, consciousness, is exactly where science, philosophy and religion intersect. And what the brain theory and this idea of consciousness and mind shows is that really science, religion and philosophy are actually one and the same. And that's a very powerful, powerful revelation. I'm saying it's a powerful revelation that can be explained to technologists, atheists, agnostics and scientists and religious people as well. I'm saying that is the basis for your worldview, your Weltanschauung. And the brain theory has other properties, which I'll go into. The brain theory isn't just a scientific revelation, it's also a technological wonder. Now, I'll tell you why people will accept very quickly that the brain theory is actually definitive. And it's this. The entire brain theory reduces to a recursive atom. So the entire brain theory is expressed as a recursive formula. Now, okay, it's slightly technical. Now, a recursive formula, a recursive process is what we talked about earlier. A fertilized egg becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16. That's a recursive function. Okay. So from a recursive atom, the fertilized egg, comes your entire body and also your brain. What have I told you? That the entire brain theory is expressed as a recursive atom and a recursive formula, a self-modifying recursive formula. And also the brain theory shows how the process by which bodies come into being, how the process by which brains come into being, and the process by which brains work is actually one continuum. So it's very, very ingenious. And this recursive atom is self-modifying. It modifies itself to modify itself better. Now, that is basically the singularity in microcosm. If the technological singularity is the creation of artificial intelligence that creates the next generation of artificial intelligence, that modifies itself, that creates the next better generation of artificial intelligence, what the brain theory shows is that basically how the brain works is the technological singularity in microcosm. And I believe that when people see the formalism in which the brain theory is expressed and basically its relationship to religion, science, and also where the brain works, obviously, I think it's going to be accepted as definitive in a very short space of time, because we're working on a time limit, and we need to use this brain theory to promote the worldview. Now, finally, this brain theory, okay, states the same with the artificial intelligence bit. If I told you all these technologies are some of the hottest technologies that basically run the world of computing and information science, and the brain theory actually encapsulates all this functionality in a single recursive algorithm. So it's a scientific wonder, a technological revelation, but also a kind of like something which will actually give us the basis for actually creating the technological singularity. So the social movement I envisage doesn't just correct the problems of this world. The social movement actually seeks to create the future. And I'm saying you need something on your side to make your revolutionary movement compelling, that even your MI5 operatives, spies on your movement and says, oh my God, this is bigger than Queen and Country, Present Nation, I like what these guys are doing. So you need something huge behind it. I'm saying this fits the bill. And also 2012 is a very special time because many schizotypal people are waiting for something like this to happen. And these schizotypal people are exactly the kind of people we need to start a revolutionary movement. So I say to you that 2012, this thing will emerge in London 2012. And it's a surefire thing that people are waiting for anyway, but it's going to bring very, very dramatic changes in this world. Now, so we have the unification of science, religion, and philosophy. We have this technology which is going to create the singularity. So therefore, going back to our dominoes, we have this kind of decisive victory in the realm of ideas, something which can unify science, religion, and philosophy, something so compelling and powerful that can really create a lot of excitement in a short space of time. So all these problems, ancient problems in science, theology, and philosophy is actually solved. But this gives us the basis to take on those ideologies of the world we talked about earlier. And because we're reviving the idea that everyone's God and the idea behind esoteric religion, we also revive enlightenment, humanistic and spiritual values to combat those ideologies of the world today, selfish genes, religious fundamentalism, Ayn Rand. So therefore, we knock over the first domino to wrap up the problems in the realm of pure idea, to take on the ideologies which are destroying this planet and creating all the injustice and unfairness in this world, which then allows us to take on the problems in the social, economic, political realm. Now this is where the revolution comes in. Because what we see here is that the Weltanschauung's creed, the war between worldviews, the battle in the realm of ideas. Now, the better we win this battle in the realm of ideas, the less the severe the fighting in the streets will be, the less the severe the fighting in the battlefield will be. Potentially, if you win the battle in the realm of ideas completely, there is no fighting in the streets. Do you see what's happening? A revolution really is about a revolution in thought, in ideas. And things like, the actual revolution in the streets, that's something which only needs to happen if this battle isn't completely won. So I'm saying it is a process of winning hearts and minds. If you can win this battle in the realm of ideas, then everything becomes much, much easier. If you neglect or lose this battle in the realm of ideas, then everything is lost. It's irrelevant. So this is where so the ideas, these values, this 23-point program, these enlightenment, spiritual and humanistic values need to get into the social, economic, political realm. And then the 23-point program allows us to address all the problems together. If people say there's no political will behind the issues of tackling world poverty, tackling the injustices of this world, what you're doing is you're basically articulating that political will and you're giving it the force to go into the social political realms. So you're telling people what needs to be done and why. and giving a kind of impetus behind it. So only through tackling the real problems in social, economic, political realms can you actually finally tackle the real, global environmental problems of this world. So just to finish on a mythic note, okay, the world is Camelot in disarray. It's basically the Middle Earth about to be overrun by orcs and neoliberals. It is the Matrix about to be taken over by Agent Smith. And London is Jerusalem, because Jerusalem means city of peace. Now, obviously, city of peace isn't Jerusalem, because it's bloody awful there. There's no peace there for anybody. So, I mean, London is like, race relations, it doesn't get any better. I mean, the fact there was a Stephen Lawrence inquiry shows how progressive London is. So London's city of peace, but London's also Babylon, the Babylon of races. So it's actually really cosmopolitan. Now, London's also Megiddo, because Megiddo, which is translated as Armageddon. Armageddon in northern Israel is where all the trade routes in ancient times met. In Asia, Africa, and Europe met in Megiddo. But surely London plays that role today. Heathrow Airport, the most busy airport in the world, and its cosmopolitan nature, and trade, etc. And London is also Sodom and Gomorrah. That's obvious. Now, okay. More Gomorrah the merrier. Sorry, bad joke. Anyway, so the brain theory that's going to appear in London, the brain theory is the sword and the stone, because it's what is going to empower a movement to take on the problems of the world. It's also the lapis or philosopher's stone, because it's what transforms the lead of kind of dull, mundane consciousness into the lead of dull consciousness into the gold of mystical illumination. And it's also the Trojan horse, because the brain theory is what's going to bring back the esoteric mysteries back into mainstream society. Because people are not interested in God or esoterica, they are interested in artificial intelligence, brain and consciousness. So it's basically the Trojan horse that's going to bring the ancient mysteries back into modern life. And it's the golden fleece, because technologies through the singularity, nanotechnology, life extension, is what's going to basically cure people and also heal this planet. Not just solve the problems of this world, but regenerate this planet. And finally, it's the Holy Grail, because if we can return the Holy Grail to Camelot, then we can finally create this shared vision and this common hope. This shared vision and this common hope, this world without borders, nationalism, racism, or genocide. This world without hunger, disease, exploitation, or oppression. This world where all the animals have got smiles on their faces, and the people may live lives of love and happiness. A world where all the trees may live safe and carefree, just this way, free and easy, in this gentle breeze. That and so much more is coming soon to a planet near you. It's coming to London in 2012. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Thank you very much.